I do enjoy driving, I do. I drive high-speed trains, so I drive trains maximum line speed in the UK, which is 125, getting views that nobody else gets. You have a fantastic view. You have the best view in the house, don't you? In front of the train. And it's nice to see the changing seasons. I've had 2 experiences of PTSD, both different situations. The first time took a long time to diagnose, but the second time I knew I was heading that way.
My first incident was back in 1995. I was held up at work, tied up at gunpoint, robbed at the station. Was off for about 12-13 weeks at the time, quite shaken up. Now, the diagnosis that I was given was PTSD.
The clinical definition of a traumatic event is when you're exposed to death or threatened death, or injury or threatened injury. So in the railway context, it would be witnessing a fatality or an attempted suicide, or when we have an interpersonal event, so something like a mugging or a violent or sexual assault would count as a traumatic event. A typical response to trauma would be shock. So feeling dizzy or nauseated, feeling as though your skin's clammy, your heart rate increases. You can have quite strong physiological symptoms, and that's normal because your brain's witnessed something that we're not really designed to witness. Whereas with PTSD, what you're talking about there is problematic ongoing symptoms for a month or more. These symptoms start to interfere in day-to-day life. You may experience things like a flashback, where people believe that they're still in the situation, or their body's telling them they're still in danger in some way. People can disassociate from their body, so it's not uncommon for someone with PTSD to knock their shoulder and not realise that they've done it.
I guess I had mood swings, and I probably wasn't great to be around. With my sister's kids around, I was getting annoyed very quickly, and I was getting snappy, and that's not me at all.
The first time around, there was a lot of shock, a lot of flashbacks, nervousness going out for a while. I sort of took myself away from the situation, went home and stayed there for about 8-9 weeks. Couldn't really face coming back.
Everyone's different, that's the thing. What one person suffers from, another person might not. So it is very difficult to pinpoint, I think.
When we experience a trauma, there are 3 areas of the brain which are involved in our stress response. The amygdala is like the alarm bell of the brain, which sounds the alarm, so something bad's happened. The prefrontal cortex has to decide how to respond to that, and that's going to tell the rest of the brain and the body what to do. But it's the hippocampus that's really responsible for the memory of the trauma, so it files away the information as it happens and moves something from being a current event to being a memory. When we're experiencing a trauma, we have a huge surge of cortisol, which affects how the hippocampus works. It's our stress hormone, and it can actually change the shape of the hippocampus. So when we talk about PTSD being a physiological change in the brain, that's what we mean. Without the hippocampus working well, the prefrontal cortex doesn't know how to respond, and it will stay in a very high-level stress response, as though the event is happening live now.
I upset very easily. Certainly after the first suicide on the station about 3-4 years ago now. I just broke down and absolutely went to pieces. Took it really bad, called up my line manager who just talked to me. Just sat down, we talked about football, we talked about a little bit about work, about sort of the stuff I do with the union. And I don't think somebody like that gets enough sort of plaudits or enough credit for just being able to handle something like that. And it's just about being able to sit down and speak to a colleague, to be quite honest with you. It was just something that she did really well. You know, I'm still grateful this day. Because I think it was a big help, the fact that somebody just stopped everything, just took the time out and came and talked to you.
The There are many different variants of counselling or talking therapies which are available for mental health issues, and whilst they may help with some of the symptoms of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder needs specific trauma-focused treatment.
The railway is full of processes. There's processes for everything. All you've got to do is follow that process. If you speak to your line manager, they're the people that will recommend that you see somebody professionally. They'll sanction it and they'll send you, like they did for me. I went to see a psychiatrist, and from that I then got to see the clinical psychologist. So it's a process that you have to go to, but it starts with the individual, the train driver, sitting down with his line manager saying, I need help, I need more help than I can get from our counselling team. I need more specialist help. I work with 100, 200 drivers. Word soon gets around that you've been to a psychiatrist, and I know a lot of drivers would warn me against it. So, we don't want to do that. Once you do that, it's a one-way street. They'll never have you back. But, you know, here I am. There is a way back. You never 100% get over it. I think it takes a chunk out of you somewhere, but you just learn how to handle it. And that's the benefit for me, seeing a really good qualified clinical psychologist. They teach you how to deal with it. And that's how you go forward in a positive way. I had a staggered return to work, which is mandatory. You go out with colleagues that you know, you don't work a full day, you do like a half day for a week or two, and then you go out with another driver just over your routes, and then eventually after a week or two, you drive a little bit and you're eased back into it. So the process of returning to work for me was very good.
When we're supporting someone with PTSD in the workplace, there can be a real fear that we're going to make things worse. So people often ask me, you know, should I be talking to them about this? How much detail should I be talking to them about it? And it's really important to know that you can't really make things worse. It's important to normalise their experience. If you know other people who've been through a similar experience and they're okay to talk about it, maybe put them in touch with each other, because it normalises the process they're going through. If they're able to connect with someone else, it's going to help them normalise their experience and they can learn from each other.